tutorial. The last tutorial we looked at method overloading. This tutorial we're going to be looking at constructor overloading. Now, the difference between a method and a constructor, if we look at the answer class, this is the constructor. It is a method, but it's a method to initialize all the members of a class. So when you create an object of a class, an instance of it, the constructor method runs and it initializes all the member variables. And if you don't put a constructor method in a class, it automatically does a default one with no arguments, and so it does one anyway. And the difference, you can see a constructor doesn't return anything. Constructor is like construction. It's like a builder. It builds the class. So you can look at it as a builder or a constructor. It's a constructor method. So it's the class constructor. So that's the word for it. It doesn't return anything, so it doesn't have void here, or int, or string, or object, or array. Well, this is a normal method, get answer. It has to return value int. If it didn't return anything, it would have void, and you can see the difference. And it's a constructor has the exact same name as the class, and the class starts with a capital letter, and so does a constructor. The difference here is because it's a method, it has the brackets to put arguments into, and that's what we're going to look at. Constructor overloading. So we'll put arguments in, we'll have more than one constructor, and if we put one argument in with one integer argument, that constructor will operate different from the default one, because we'll have different code inside the block, like the braces, start and stop. Any code between here will be executed when this constructor is run. And this is so simple that we've just got one data member, an integer called answer, and so we initialize that to 0. So because we've done the method overloading here, and this is the same as method overloading, but we're doing it with the constructor, so we've got a class, and by constructor overloading we can have that one class behave differently if we pass arguments to it. So if we pass one integer to the constructor, the class will behave in a certain way which it didn't beforehand. If we pass two integer arguments, it will behave different again. We're the designers, we control how it behaves. And so if we pass a string or any other object as argument, it will behave different. So we can have one class, and we can have that one class behaving in many different ways. And so as a designer, it's a very powerful tool. And so instead of the method which does something, doing something different with arguments, we're doing it with the constructor. So this is the whole class is going to change. It's going to do something different, but we're not going to do it in the answer class, because we've already got these methods overloaded by the same name. So we'll go to the fourth class, and let's see, I've already got constructors in here which I tried out. Fourth, right, this is a constructor with default constructor, no arguments, and this is num. And what we've done is we've said num equals 50. Instead of initializing it 0, I've given it a value of 50, and this one is the value that is passed to it. So nums, whatever we pass to it, is going to get put in here, and it's going to be printed to screen. And then we've got two integers. I've not done any strings because the tutorial before we tried integers and strings and showed that you can do both, and an integer will be treated different from a string. and so we don't need to do that now because we know this. And so this is the constructor, and you can see that the constructor has got the same name as the class, but it's got brackets, and you can see that each one of these has got the same name as the class. They've got brackets, but we've got arguments inside them. We don't have a return file because it doesn't return anything. We'll go down to the get num and the set num, and we have a return argument because these are methods, members of the class methods. And so we've got one default one, and then we've got two different constructors. And so if we go back to this second command, it's a fourth class, so it's this one here. So if we do system, no, if we just do, if we just pass, if we run this, let me just see, if we run a program 50, it's printed 50 out. Because we've created, why we didn't have to put anything in run is because what we've done is we've created the class, and we could create the class again. We'll do that just to show you. And we'll have two 50s. Okay, but this one we're going to pass an integer, and we've got 50 and we've got the 22 we passed, because in the constructor with one integer, whatever was passed, we passed 22, this became 22, and then we said num equals 22, then we printed out num. So whatever we passed to this class was going to get printed out. Well, the other ones we haven't done it, we've just said 5 equals num, and we've just ignored what we passed in. But normally use them, it's down to yourself, but I'm just trying to demonstrate it to you. And so if we change that to 212, you'll see that's the default one, equals 50, and 212 we passed in, and so it's printed out. So when you create the class, that constructor builds the class that you've created an object of, and it will have different values, and that class will behave differently because of this method overloading. It's a constructor overloading. So you do what you've done with the method, you're doing with the class. And so if I go, this next one is two integers, and it should be 5. And so if I go back again, and if I create a third object, this is a third object, and if we pass in 3 and 9, so now we've passed in two integers. Doesn't like this. Yeah, I've passed it into the wrong one. Okay, so passed into the wrong one, that's silly. So we do 3, 9, now we're passing in two integers, and that means the third constructor will be run when we create this class, and everything will be initialized with different values. And so num's going to be 5, and that's what we're going to print out. So if we run the program, now that's the default constructor 50 for this instance of the class, and this is the constructor for where we passed 121, one integer, and this is where we passed two integers, and that was 3 separate instances of that class, and each one of these are independent from each other. They're like copies of the copies of the class, like the prototype. And so there's something, let's see, 50, 205. Yeah, there's something that I've done here. We'll go back here. I've given these 3 the same name, but they should have different names, 2 and 3. And that means I have to change, I have to decrease as well, 2 and 3. Yeah, that was, we can't, what it is, we've created three objects, but the three objects had the same name, so it should have created an error because they're going to conflict with each other, especially when they've got different values. And so now we've got three separate ones, right? So what we've got is we've got FC dot with all get num, and then we've got FC2 dot get num, then we've got FC3 dot get num. Now every single one of them is a different copy of the prototype, which is the class. So each one of them has got the identical class, but the data members have been initialized different and they're going to behave differently. And so that is constructor overloading, and so the constructor overloading affects the behavior of the class. Remember, the constructor is what, whenever you create an object of a class, the first thing it runs is the constructor, and what it will do, it will give the default values of all the data members. And so what we've done is we've changed them, and so because of that we've enabled the methods within the class and the data members to behave differently, because if a data member is at a certain value, we can have a case statement, if statement to behave differently, and so we can have different effects. So I hope that's helped, and again I'm going to thank you for your time.